Good afternoon, Michelle Jones. I'll be interviewing you about your leadership style. Number one, what can leaders do to inspire teams to perform at their best?
Mm. I think that's one of the biggest question now is motivated. I think one of the best things as leaders, for me as a leader, one of the things that I do is that I try to get to understand and know my employees. So, and what their strengths are. And so with anyone, when you're working and you're good at something, it motivates you to continue to do it. But I also challenge them with their weaknesses too, because challenge sometimes can also be a motivator. So I think that as a leader is pretty much getting to understand and know the people that are working for you. I think that's one of the biggest mistake that a lot of people don't know and don't do. A lot of leaders don't do is just really try to target and understand the people that works for them. So that for me is what I do is actually is to get to know that person, and I always give respect and treat people how I want to be treated. So that's mainly, but the main thing is to know their strengths and also to know their weaknesses.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. What challenges do you face in maximizing team performance?
Um, Communication is the task. Trying to get everyone to communicate on the same level, and also trying to get everyone to get used to each other's personality can be a very challenging thing in any job. But I think once we teach, train, I would say train or teach, whichever one that works, people how to be more emotionally intelligent. A lot of times we make decisions, and the reason why this person can't get along is the fact that they're attaching their emotions to certain decisions that are made in an office. And as much as we don't want to, people are very biased with certain decisions that they make and certain people that they want to work with, and it's based on that emotions that they use. And so how would I do it? I try to train people that this job is not about your emotion; it's about getting a job done. And I think that once we do that, that we can accomplish that cohesiveness that we need to make a business run, and also having them spend a lot of time with each other. I think creating tasks and fun things for them to do to get to know each other and to get to understand each other's personality can be a really great tool that would be in an office that would be very effective to a group.
Thank you. So, what are the top five leadership skills for successfully building and leading teams?
We just said two of them, which is understanding each other and understanding as the head leader, understanding your flock, as they would say, understanding the people that work for you. Definitely a workplace that your team can come and feel comfortable and not feel violated in any sort. A place that is comfortable, and also understanding that their personal issue
Mm.
affects them at work, but as much as you can try to eliminate the personal issue that comes into work, um, when it comes to discussing it with team members. I'm not saying not discussing it with HR or discussing it with your boss. It's kind of different. But
Can I ask you a question? So, are you
when you start discussing that within your team, so it would be something that I would not allow at work is discussing your personal business with the team. That can also bring a big problem within that. So that's number four. And again, number five is just being fair. I think being really fair to your employers and really understanding them is one of the biggest goals. That's for me is the five. I think that can be there. Yeah.
how do excellent leaders develop fellowship?
I'm not understanding you.
How do excellent leaders develop fellowship?
Fellowship. Well, growing up, we always learned that to be a leader and not a follower. But a great leader knows both. They know when to follow, and I think within that, um, it's they would call it now is to pick the positive things. Like I love to, as mimic, as they would say, to follow. I love to follow. For instance, I'm going to use a company that I think does just great when it comes to customer service. So I like to mimic their service and how it is, and that's definitely that's definitely something that I like to do is to mimic different companies that, and so I think following is good. Depends on who you're following and what you're following.
Thank you. What are some important decision making strategies that leaders might use? Which of these strategies do you feel is most effective and why? So the first part of the question is, what are some important decision making strategies that leaders might use?
Might. I have to. I would say the most important one is to use is to disconnect. I think we cannot make decisions on emotions. We have to make common sense decisions. And whether you want to make the decision on, oh my God, this person is this, but if it's not a common sense decision, not all the time you're going to be able to do that. I'm not saying that to be cold and emotional less, but I'm saying that decision has to be made that's going to be for a company that's going to be you got to figure out the damage on both sides of how this is going to affect the company and how this is going to affect the person. So I think not making it on emotion and non-bias is the biggest problem that we have, is that we have people that are biased. And again, we have people that make decision on emotions. Emotion is one of the things that hurts companies the most.
So what you're saying is that is the best strategy that you feel is most effective.
Is most effective is to learn to make decisions on not emotions, but make them on facts.
And why do you say that?
When we make a decision on emotions, majority of the time it doesn't turn out right because we're making those decisions on our emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a problem that affects the entire company. So making that decision based on this is because I'm feeling sad for this person. But if we help this person, all of us are going to go to jail.
Right.
So it doesn't really make sense. So it's like I can't make that decision based on how I'm feeling if I'm going to jeopardize my company and all the employees that's in it. So we have to learn to make common sense decisions.
So based on what you're saying about the emotional part of making not making decisions based on emotions,
Yeah.
right? So because you're saying that, so how can you help knowing that somebody in your team is very emotional and keep them and focus on the vision and the mission of the organization?
Well, one of the things that most companies don't do and is teach emotional intelligence. It takes a while to understand that, and it's very hard to do. But for me, how I deal with that in a whole, even with, it's like this is not an emotional decision because you do have people. Passion and emotions are passion is an emotion, but how we deal with that is different. Some people will say, "I'm not angry, I'm passionate," but
Mm-hmm.
angry and passion is two different things, even though they both are emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody can be passionate and not and angry, and it's okay to be angry, but be angry with a purpose. A lot of us are just angry, and so for me, trying to teach them the difference in dealing with emotions. How can we look at facts? Facts. This is the facts of this. So your emotion is not going to work, and I think it's more of a repetition of I would say repetition of behavioral patterns. And if I'm continuous to see that behavioral pattern in Joe Smo, I'm going to make sure that I say, Joe Smo, you're going through this. How can I help you to not do that? I think it's more like a way we raise our children. We help them correct certain things and work on certain things. And the more they practice this, the better it becomes.
Thank you. What are some ethical concerns faced by leaders?
Ethical. Oh God, there's so much. Greed, making decision based on money, and that's a problem that we have every day. I think because we are, as human beings, are never satisfied, that we tend to want to, make decision on pretty much to sum this up, Mr. Hunter, I think the decision that we make sometimes, ethical decisions again, could be on. Um, let me see how I can put this. Knowing that you're doing this thing wrong, so ethical can also be a problem. The ethical thing to do is to make him stay there. But what if he stays there and it affects the company? So if you're talking about ethics, a lot of people, any decision that people make, ethical decision that people make, it's usually based on monetary or financial gains. So I think it's learning as a leader to be comfortable, and also to be comfortable with yourself, and also to be I'm going to say to be satisfied, because we are not. We always tend to make us make decisions, because when we do make them is because there is there's something in it that's going to better you, instead of looking at it as there's something in it that's going to better your company.
So, how might you deal with these ethical concerns? How do you deal with those ethical concerns
I
in your?
think one of the thing is, for that, when people understand, and when people understand who you are as a company, they will know that's not something. I think repetition of constantly set a certain standard for your company. And I think in business they call it purple cow. What is your purple cow? And I think in every company it should be your ethical behavior that follows you. And people will say they're known for their ethical behavior. It's just to make sure that it represents at all time that this company, that's not something that will do that. They don't behave that way. That's the answer I can get. If it's wrong, then you know you can always let me know. And I continue to grow as a leader and every day.
So, have you ever heard of different leadership styles?
Of course, yes, quite a few of them.
So, what leadership style do you